Hi, this is Dhruv,
And this is John.
and this is week 36 of the devlog.
So this week we're going to be talking about games within games, mini games and all that stuff, because we actually have quite a lot of opinions about it. And the question of the week will be, what do you guys think about games within a game? Have you guys played games where the mini game is better than the actual game? And that's let us know in the comments down below. So we kind of mentioned it in the video. I don't think we talked about it in person, but we are also working on a card game on the side. And this is kind of like, so it was a physical card game that we made, that I made a long time ago, but we thought we would make it into a actual game. But Drew was suggesting, why don't we just put the game in Eduardo? And the funny thing is, I think of all the games we made before, we've always said, oh, next game we're gonna make sure we don't make multiple games. Yeah, remember from Mirror Blade? How many games did you... For Mirror Blade, our last mobile game, I think Drew forgot how many games.
3 before getting to the final one. Yeah.
What was the first one?
The first one was like we did this kind of scrolling thing where there's multiple NPCs and then one will come in randomly at a time.
Yeah. There's like city.
Yeah, there was a city and everything. And then we did a text-based adventure. And then we did some sort of weird, this hybrid between text-based adventure and combat. And the combat, then we just would decide to do, let's just go full combat. And then it evolved eventually into the game that we eventually ended up making.
Yeah, and like in the end, Mirror Blade was still 2 games where it's you make a sword, that there's a mini game there, and there's actual combat. And I think in terms of design, it poses a very, very obvious downside, which is you're not focused in your design.
Yeah.
But I think Witcher 3 did games really the in game really well, right?
Yeah. So in Witcher 3, they had a card game as Gwent.
I don't remember the name. Oh,
Gwent. Yeah, everybody knows that game, and I think they did it really well because they incorporated it into their design. It wasn't the focus of the game. It wasn't even needed to play the game at all. It was just kind of a cool side thing that you can do if you want to. So when it's not a core focus of the game, I think it changes things. Another like kind of cool idea of that is fishing in games. Whenever you have a mini game of fishing, even Pokemon has fishing. And
I don't get that. Drew actually, the whole reason we had fishing in Eduardo is because Drew says there's no reason not to have it.
Yeah, I mean, there's like this meme that's like, why is there any reason to have this? There's like this meme around that whole kind of thing of not having fishing in games. But I think the overarching theme is that when you have a game within a game, if that mini game overtakes the main game, then it's a flaw in the design. Or if it's an integral part of the main game, then it becomes like a flaw because it ends up becoming hard to distinguish what to do, which game to focus on, whether you focus on the actual main game or what's the actual main game. And otherwise it just makes it seem like they're both 50-50. There's nothing, none of them stand out. They both kind of don't succeed in what they're trying to do.
So did you think Mirror Blade was a bad design? Remember that Taiwan video where there was actually a Taiwanese video that made a review of Mirror Blade, and one of the part it says one of the core features that stands out for Mirror Blade is that you can make your sword through this mini game.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're okay with it. What did you think about Mirror Blades?
I think, I don't know if you guys don't know about Mirror Blade. Pretty much there was, it's a free app. It's still on the App Store if you guys want to download it. I mean, it's not a plugin or whatever. You can if you want. And pretty much the game revolved around making a sword and then being able to fight with that sword. That was the design. And making the sword required you to go through this mini game where you first choose the sword parts and then you choose the ores you want to put in. And then you play this kind of dropping mini game where you can hit certain combos to get the maximum amount of score, and then when you get a better score, the sword has better stats, and then with that sword you can then combine that with a hero, and then you can fight in this kind of just a story normal mobile type environment. I thought it was pretty decent. I think the problem that it presented was that it was really hard. It took us a really long time to get to the design to be good, and I think it made us focus a lot on things that it made us kind of focus a lot on things that didn't necessarily need to be focused on in order for one part of the game to be better. So when we were focusing on trying to make the sword making better, we were then taking out the focus on the combat, and vice versa. When we were focusing on making the combat better, we were taking out that focus from the sword making. So then at the end of the day, it might have turned out to be a pretty good game, but it definitely could have been much better, I think, if we had focused on things like, if we had just one focus on what is this game, what is the core of this game, why are we making this game, and then just made that the best it could be, then it creates that sense. That design is easier to...
It's more tight.
Yeah, to be able to make. I think Hollow Knight is a perfect example of that sort of design. They were like, yeah, we want to make a game where it's a Metroidvania, and we want to make it so that there's a bunch of exploration, and that's pretty much it. That's their design. And it's so good because they kept that design, but they executed it to them like the best, the max potential. And there's plenty of examples with games like that. There's plenty of examples like Witcher, which they have multiple things as well. I think it all makes it so you kind of have to think about what you want in a game, and then design whether that secondary thing that you're adding adds to what you want in the game. Then you put it in. Otherwise, you don't.
So for Eduardo, are you leaning towards putting it in or not?
I think for Eduardo, I would put it in only after the rest of the game is really, really good. So I would say, like, if our demo isn't good, if it's not fun, then I wouldn't say put it in the card game to fix that.
Right.
I would be like,
so it's not the band-aid.
Yeah, it's not a band-aid on top to fix the problem. There's something wrong with the game. You fix that problem first, and then you're like, hey, also we have a card game if you want to play. It's kind of a cool feature. It's not a integral, oh yeah, we need to put a card game in order to make this game good.
Yeah. I think Mirror Blade, most of my, like, for example, my family members and my close friends, a lot of them female, really enjoyed the mini game of making sword from Mirror Blade a lot more than the actual combat.
Yeah.
I think the combat way too, like, complicated. Even my mom kept asking, do you guys want to just make the mini game its own separate games and all that stuff?
A lot of our guy, remember the Lewis also said, our marketing guy back then, suggested we make a reskinned version of that game. It was just not our we only made that mini game because we wanted to make the combat better. So I feel like we should have just focused on the combat and just made a mini game of crafting system.
Remember, the mini game of Mirror Blade was the core, and then we had multiple versions of the combat.
Yeah.
The combat was the extra game.
And then it ended up becoming the core. So it was just all over the place.
Yeah. So now that we have that experience, and then we're at the same junction where we're deciding whether or not we want to put in another one, does that affect your decision or not?
Mirror Blade doesn't, because I know that this game, I'm already far away from adding that card game to the game. Not because of the amount of work it requires or anything. It's mainly just because now we have to make quests that have that card game, and you have to have NPCs that can play with you, which is a fun thing. It's not a bad thing. Right. But we already have so many other things we have to fix first. I think there's a lot of things in the game that aren't necessarily 100% ready. We haven't even done a quest. Right. So there's a lot of things that need to be done before we can be like, yeah, we're adding a card game into there. So
let us know if there were games within games that were good enough for you to be remember it. Because Fable 3, they had multiple mini games. I don't remember any of them. They were something with bartering and all this stuff, but I don't remember any of them. And I feel like it added nothing to the game. Even, to be honest, in Witcher 3, I never played the card game too. I was like, oh, it's cool that it's there, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And I think in our senses, it's... Because we are going to make a physical copy of that game for sure. And then, but we're not sure about the virtual one. And what do you guys think having games like this, let's say a card game that the people in Brave Eduardo like to play, it's like a culture thing, and it adds to the world. Do you guys think having extra stuff like this, extra touches, really add to the world or add to the sense? Or do you guys really feel like we should add it in just to make the game feel more complete? Let us know in the comments below. We might put it as a Kickstarter question as well.
Yeah, maybe when we do a Kickstarter.
Which we said 6 months ago.
Yeah, we've been working a little bit on other things as well. But regardless, thanks you for watching, and make sure to smash that like button.
We need to think of something. There's like a video like where they go skadoosh or something. Whatever. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
All right, bye.
Bye.